How's it going, everybody? Lampini here today, and we are going to be covering Wild Card Weekend of the 2024 NFL season. So we are finished with the regular season, and now we are going after the postseason. There are 14 teams left, and the tournament has officially started. Now, before we get into the playoff predictions, I'm going to go over Week 18, as it was the my worst week in terms of predictions. I was 8-8. I think a lot of this had to do with like teams resting their starters, stuff like that. Like, for example, the Broncos thrashed the Chiefs because the Chiefs played their backups. The Bills lost. You know, the Jets beat the Dolphins. Bengals beat the Steelers. Bears beat the Packers, which actually did kind of suck for the Packers. But I was 8-8, so that was probably the worst prediction week that I've had so far. So now we have our final tally for the season. For the season, I was 191-81. So that's it. Those are my final tallies. I more than doubled my correct predictions to my wrong predictions. 2 years ago when I made these videos, I didn't keep track of my predictions. I decided to this time around. And I'm glad that I did, because I just proved how much of a football genius I am. But I digress. Now that we're done with that, let's get into the predictions. So the first game that we have on offer here is the Denver Broncos, the number 7 seed, at the Buffalo Bills, the number 2 seed. The Broncos were this close to losing their playoff spot. The Broncos finished at 10-7. They were doing very, very well. Midway through the season, and they were struggling after a while, though, and we were afraid that they were going to let the playoffs slip through their fingers. They hadn't been in the playoffs since Peyton Manning was their quarterback back in 2015 when they won the Super Bowl. That streak is officially over. They were 9-5 at one point, and then they had lost 2 straight against the Chargers and Bengals, and they were in grave danger of losing their spot if they didn't beat the Chiefs. And that's what would have happened, because the Dolphins lost to the Jets and the Bengals beat the Steelers. So if the Broncos had lost, then that means that the Bengals would have made in at the number 7 seed. Fortunately, though, that didn't happen. The Broncos won 38-0. So they took care of business and they made it into the playoffs. And they did it through an incredible showing by Bo Nix, who was 26 of 29, 321 yards, 4 touchdowns, 152.4 passer rating. A great way to end the year for Bo Nix. He had a very, very great rookie season in his own right. He's not going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. That's still going to go to Jaden Daniels. But a very solid showing by Bo Nix, and Sean Payton has done a great job turning this team around. Sometimes you look at some of these Hall of Fame coaches and you think, were they really all that good, or were they a product of the system? Were they a product of their Hall of Fame quarterback? Sean Payton did a very, very good job turning this team around. The Broncos have a pretty respectable point differential now, but remember, they got positive 38 points from the win last week, but they have a positive 114 point differential, which is very, very nice. And then if we look at their offensive and their defensive stats, if we take a look here, they are 3rd in points allowed on defense, 10th in points scored. Very respectable numbers by the Denver Broncos, but they have their work cut out for them as they're facing the Buffalo Bills. The Bills had the highest point differential of any AFC team. They were tied at 157 with the Baltimore Ravens. This is the Bills' 6th straight playoff appearance, which ties their longest playoff streak that they had back in the late 80s and early 90s when they went to 4 straight Super Bowls. They haven't been as successful in the playoffs, though. They've gone out in the divisional round the last 3 years. So they have been all regular season success, and they've just hit roadblock after roadblock in the playoffs. And by roadblock, I mean the Kansas City Chiefs. They have lost 3 times in the playoffs against the Kansas City Chiefs. But they won't be facing the Kansas City Chiefs this year until the conference championship. So, I mean, it's been a valiant effort by the Denver Broncos. They're in a similar situation as the Commanders, where they're in a rebuild. And I think they did very, very admirably to get this far, to make the playoffs. it's been 10 years since they've been to the playoffs. They broke their playoff drought, so I'm very happy for them to do that. A valiant effort, but they're not beating the Bills. The Bills are Super Bowl contenders. There are a lot of Super Bowl contenders in the AFC right now. I would say the Ravens have really stepped up their game, but Bills, Chiefs, and Ravens, those are the three teams that I see going to the Super Bowl. I would love to see the Bills make it this time around, but like if they lose to the Broncos, it's going to be probably the biggest postseason upset this year. I see the Bills winning this game. But again, like the Broncos have a great defense. It's going to be a great game, but it's not going to matter. The Bills are going to win. I'm going with the Bills. So next up, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Baltimore Ravens. So this is an interesting game because this is the third time these teams have been playing each other. The Steelers won the first outing, if I remember correctly, and then the Ravens won the other one. The Ravens have looked extremely good. They are first in the league in yards gained and third in points scored, and they were ninth in points allowed, 10th in yards allowed. And they have a dynamic duo on offense with the MVP Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson tore up the Browns in their last game. Lamar Jackson was 16 of 32, 217 yards, 2 touchdowns, 92.8 passer rating. And then Derrick Henry had 20 carries for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry with another, this was an Offensive Player of the Year caliber season for Derrick Henry. He had 1,900 rushing yards, averaged 5.9 yards a carry, and had 16 rushing touchdowns. In any regular season, that's enough to win Offensive Player of the Year. But Saquon Barkley broke the 2,000 yards from scrimmage mark, so he's going to get the nod for Offensive Player of the Year, rightfully so. But we had a dynamic duo between the Ravens and between Lamar and Derrick Henry, and I think that the Ravens are huge dark horses to win the Super Bowl. Last year, they had a 200-point differential, and everyone was looking at them. They're going to win, they're going to win, they're going to win, and they lost in the conference championship. Now, there's a lot less pressure on them, and they were seeing the stuff about how they were like, the Ravens win a Super Bowl every 12 years because they won in 2000 and 2012. So it'll be interesting to see if that rings true. But I would not be surprised if the Ravens go all the way. They have looked extremely good. They have scored over 30 points in these last 4 games. They are getting hot at the right time. They're looking very, very strong. Lamar still has a 2-4 playoff record. For me, that one of the losses was in 2018 when he was a rookie, so I don't really take too much into that. But Lamar needs to have a career-defining playoff run here to really solidify himself. He's going to be a 3-time MVP, but he has more MVPs than playoff wins, right? So, he needs to get it done in the playoffs, but I see no reason why he can't shed that narrative, to be honest. Having Derrick Henry in the postseason is going to be incredibly important for them because Derrick Henry can just lean on. They can lean on him. He can run like hell, and he can wear down some of these teams. The Steelers, on the other hand, have limped their way into the playoffs. They have lost 4 straight. They were 10-3 at one point, and they were looking very, very strong, and it looked like that they had a very, very strong argument to make some noise and make the conference championship, maybe even the Super Bowl, but they have really, really regressed these last 4 games. Now, they have played the Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs, and Bengals, all tough games, right? But you can't, here's the problem. They lost to the Eagles 27-13. They lost to the Ravens 34-17. They lost to the Chiefs 29-10, and then they lost to the Bengals 19-17. So not only were these not close games, but they got beat badly. And it's the worst thing that could possibly happen to them. They have limped their way into the playoffs. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016. This has been a very, very tough couple games and couple years for the Steelers. They're 10-7. They have a winning record, but they just can't show any of it in the postseason. And I'm expecting this to be one of the more lopsided games. I think the Ravens are going to walk all over the Steelers. It's going to be a slaughter. It's going to be a career-defining postseason win for Lamar, which he desperately needs those around this time. And then when that's over, they are going to play either the Chargers or Texans, which we'll go over that game in a little bit. But I am going with the Ravens. I see no like it's kind of like the Broncos. Except I think this would be an even bigger upset if the Steelers beat the Ravens. I think this is the biggest lock in all of the playoff games. I'm going with the Ravens. So this is the last matchup we have for the AFC. We have the Los Angeles Chargers at the Houston Texans. So this is the first season for the Chargers under Jim Harbaugh, and they've played extremely well. The Chargers had a positive 100-point differential, 101. Justin Herbert does what he does best. The Chargers defense has been extremely good. They have quietly got themselves to an 11-6 record. And that's not a bad thing. They play nice, safe football, but nice, safe football wins you playoff games. As for the Texans, they have a 0-point differential. They scored just as many points as they gave up. They were 10-7. They, I think, benefited greatly from a weak division. So if we look at the Houston Texans here, I have their schedule pulled up right here. Looking at the division, they beat the Colts, they beat the Jaguars. I'm looking at all of their victories here. I'm highlighting all of them in the division. So they beat the Colts twice, they beat the Jaguars twice, and they beat the Titans once. So they almost clean swept the division. But that's 5 of their 10 wins. 5 of their 10 wins were against terrible teams. And then you look at some of the other wins that they had. They beat the Bears, terrible. They beat the Bills in Week 5, which was very, very admirable. They won 23-20. They beat the Patriots. Nobody team there. They beat the Cowboys, another terrible team. They beat the Dolphins. That's honestly one of their more impressive wins. So they haven't beaten anyone this year. They lost to the Chiefs and Ravens these last 2 weeks. They lost to the Lions. They lost to the Titans. They lost to the Jets. They lost to the Packers. They lost to the Vikings. All the teams they lost to are postseason teams. So the Texans, despite being 10-7, their 0-point differential says it all. They have not been that good of a team. Everyone expected them to make that next push, right? But a huge sophomore slump by C.J. Stroud, and they have really limped their way into the playoffs off of an extremely, extremely weak division. Half of their victories were in the division, and they went up against a terrible Colts team that only has all those wins because they're in a bad division. And the Jaguars and the Titans, who have 3 and 4 wins respectively, I believe. So that's not a good look for the Texans. As for the Chargers, like I said, they took care of business. Justin Herbert in their game against the Raiders was 28 of 36, 346 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 125.2 passer rating. Quentin Johnson, world-renowned draft bust Quentin Johnson, had a great game, 13 receptions for 186 yards. That's why I'm bringing that up. Huge showing there. Justin Herbert is really going to be put on full display here. The Chargers are going to win. It's a pretty easy matchup here for me. It seems like a lot of these matchups in the AFC, not too much of a surprise here. We're looking at the 2, 3, and 5 seeds making it through. So that would leave the Bills, Ravens, and Chargers advancing, which means that the Chiefs would play. That means the Chiefs would play the Chargers, and the Ravens would play the Bills, which that's going to be an incredible game. Bills and Ravens. And then all the Chiefs would have to do is beat the Chargers, division rival Chargers, 3rd time they're playing them. And then, I see no reason why the conference championship can't be Chiefs, Ravens, or Chiefs, Bills. I'd be shocked if the Chargers made it, but you're looking at the 1, 2, and 3 seeds. AFC is stacked, and man, it's exciting when you see the best of the best go against each other like this. But I'm going with the Chargers. They're going to beat the Texans. So there go the AFC teams. Now we're going to look at the NFC and see what we have going on here. So we have the Green Bay Packers at the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles played their backups against the Giants, and they still won. Jordan Love was injured. Hopefully he's okay for the game because they stand no chance if Jordan Love is not playing. The Packers lost out to the Bears 24-22. Nice of the Bears to snap their 10-game losing streak by getting a win. They're probably one of the most disappointing teams this season, up there with the New York Jets as well. I'm going to be brief with this one. I could very easily see the Eagles making the Super Bowl. My dad's my dad's Super Bowl predictions was he had the Ravens and Eagles, which I think is very, very possible. I can very easily see that happen. The Eagles have been operating on all cylinders, and they have looked extremely strong. They have a positive 160 point differential, which is better than their 2022 season. And their 2022 season, they looked like they were ready to go to win the whole thing. And they've looked incredibly strong during their win streak. We're the ones that broke it, just want to say that. But they won their last 2 games, despite Jalen Hurts not playing. But they have been incredibly strong, and they've beaten good teams along the way. They beat the Ravens. They beat the Steelers when everyone thought they were good. But looking at things here, they actually haven't played many good teams. They beat during their winning streak, they beat the Browns, Giants, Bengals, Jaguars, Cowboys, Commanders, Rams, Ravens, Panthers, and Steelers. So beating the Rams and the Ravens back to back was good, and then beating the Steelers was also good because the Steelers are still a 10-7 playoff team. But yeah, they are very, very good, and I don't see the Packers upsetting the Eagles. If Jalen Hurts doesn't get out of concussion protocol, then we're talking about a completely different situation. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to come in. I think they're going to be as strong as ever. I think the Packers are going to put up a fight, and I think it's going to be a classic case of it's going to be close starting out, and then they're going to lose control as things go on. You know what I mean? So I'm going with the Eagles. I think the Eagles are going to win. So I am very excited about this upcoming matchup. We have the Washington Commanders at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So let's talk about the Commanders for a sec. This is the best season that the Washington Commanders, Washington Redskins, have had in the 21st century. They finished 12-5 with a positive 94 point differential. Both of those statistics are the best that they have done since their Super Bowl winning season in 1991. Their single season turnaround from last year has been absolutely incredible. There's not much more I can say that I haven't already said, but they look like they are the Houston Texans and the Detroit Lions of this year. And I'm glad that they got the number 6 seed because I would have felt some type of way if they were the number 7 seed and if this was before 2020, they still wouldn't have made the playoffs. All I want to see is a playoff victory. We haven't won a playoff game since 2005. To fully solidify this as a new era, I want us to win a playoff game. No matter what happens, we are playing the Eagles after this game. So, wait, no, that's not true. Yeah, no. So if we win, we play the Lions. So we avoid the Eagles because the Eagles are the number 2 seed. So this is going to be a very tough game. The Buccaneers beat the New Orleans Saints. Baker Mayfield had a good game. Mike Evans got his 1,000-yard season. He's scored 1,000 receiving yards in all of his 11 seasons, which ties Jerry Rice's record for straight 1,000-yard seasons. I think Mike Evans is a Hall of Famer and arguably the best offensive player in Tampa Bay Buccaneers history, excluding Tom Brady, of course. But the Buccaneers are about to make the playoffs, I want to say, for the 5th straight year. And that's the longest consecutive playoff streak that the Buccaneers have had in franchise history. So they're playing extremely well as well. I think the Commanders and the Buccaneers match up really well. The Buccaneers beat us in week 1, but we are a completely different team than what we were. And I'm going with my gut and not my heart. I'm going with the Washington Commanders on this one. This is one of the few games that I can see the lower seed beating the higher seed because I think that's I had the Chargers winning, but I can see the Commanders winning this game. And the reason why is I think that the Buccaneers defense is a little bit suspect. Baker Mayfield has thrown a lot of interceptions as well. He has thrown 16, which leads the league in interceptions. So I think that if the Commanders can take advantage of some turnovers, Marshawn Lattimore will be back. He will be working on Mike Evans. I can't guarantee that Marshawn Lattimore is going to do everything to lock him down, but as long as we have a Pro Bowl corner against their Pro Bowl wide receiver, that's going to be good. But it's all going to be Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels has done an incredible job keeping us in games. And I would love to see the Washington Commanders win. They're going to be going against the Detroit Lions. And I don't think we're going to beat the Lions if we win, but I think the fact that we were a 4-win team last year and we went from that to winning a playoff game and scoring 12 victories in Jane Daniels' rookie year is a massive accomplishment for us. And I think that is a great way to get the ball rolling as this regime builds on it for next year. I am going to go with the Commanders on this one. I'm going with my gut. It's going to be a very good game. I got to watch it. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait. I'm going with Washington. Next up, we have the Minnesota Vikings at the Los Angeles Rams. Now, this game is going to be very interesting. The Vikings laid an egg against the Detroit Lions 31-9. And then the Rams, Jimmy Garoppolo played, and they lost to the Seahawks 25-30. Now, Sam Darnold was 18 of 41 in their game against the Lions. That was not a very encouraging performance by the Vikings. And I'm concerned if them going in there and laying an egg in what was supposed to be a very important game for them, I wonder if that's going to affect them a little bit here. I don't know. The Vikings are still a powerhouse. They're still an extremely strong team. If we look at point differentials, the Rams have a minus 19 point differential. They're a very, very unique team because minus point differential, but you cannot take them lightly. When the Rams are on, they can beat anybody. And I think a lot of that has to do with Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. When Matthew Stafford is on, he can go against anybody. You look at what happened in 2021 in his playoff run. He beat Tom Brady. He won 4 games. He had a game-winning drive in the Super Bowl. Like, when Matt Stafford is on, he is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So, it's going to be very interesting, though, because the Minnesota Vikings have a positive 100-point differential, and they have looked very, very strong throughout the entire season. They have 14 wins, for crying out loud. This is going to be a very tough game to call. It's going to be a very, very tough game to call. I am going to go with the Minnesota Vikings, though. If the Rams show up, they could very easily cause the upset. But I think the Vikings are too well-rounded of a team. And I think that while the Rams' defense has looked good the last couple games, I think that it's not going to be enough for because Sam Darnold, Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, all these stars in the Vikings, I think they're going to be able to rise to the occasion. I think it's going to be another great game, and I think the Vikings are just going to outscore. They're just going to outscore them. So, with the way my predictions are going to look, that would leave the Eagles going against the Vikings and the Commanders going against the Lions. From that perspective, I could very easily see a number 1 and 2 seed, the Lions against the Eagles in the conference championship, and that would be the Lions going to 2 straight conference championships. I want to see them go to the Super Bowl. What do I want to see in the Super Bowl? I want Bills-Lions. I want 2 snake-bitten franchises to go into the Super Bowl and have us guaranteed a first-time winner. And see which team's bad luck will perpetuate. Will the Bills' bad luck perpetuate and they'll be 0-5 in the Super Bowl? Or will the Lions' first ever Super Bowl appearance lead them to a victory? I don't know, but that's what I would personally like to see. Yeah, that would leave us down to the final 8. So the way I look at it now is my final 8 are the Bills, Ravens, Chargers, Chiefs, and then the Eagles, Commanders, Vikings, and Lions. And then if I can make my predictions now, I think the Ravens are going to beat the Bills, to be honest. The Bills are going to fall at the divisional round again. I think it's going to be Ravens-Chiefs, a rematch in the conference championship, and it's going to be Lions-Eagles in the conference championship. That's my final 4. Chiefs, Ravens, Eagles, Lions, and then your guess is as good as mine with those. You know, I would love to see Chiefs, Lions, the underdog Lions in their first ever Super Bowl against the dynasty. But I think that does give the Chiefs a pretty solid chance to three-peat, which would be kind of sad to see. I want to see a different team win the Super Bowl, but if that happens, then the legacy of Patrick Mahomes is even crazier because he'll have won 4 Super Bowls in all 7 years as a starter. All 7 years as a starter, he will have been to the Super Bowl 5 times, won 4 of them. I mean, he's making a case for being better than Brady at this point. It's insane, but those are my predictions for the wild card. Thank you ever so much for watching, you guys. Obviously, this video is going to be a bit shorter because we have less games to go over, but keep a lookout next year. I never finished my predictions 2 years ago. I stopped at the divisional round. Not going to do that this time. We're going to follow this thing through, and we're going to get our Super Bowl predictions out. And after the Super Bowl predictions, we're going to kind of do like a season in review the quarterbacks, see how everyone went, and whose future looks the brightest. So I have a couple good videos for you guys coming up, so you have a lot to look forward to. I'll see you guys next time. Nice.